What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about some roles that I think Among Us should add. Now, this is going to be, I think, a really, really fun video. I talked about things that Among Us should add just in general, non-role related. But for this one, I want to talk about what I think will end up being 4 roles. Now, these are by no means perfect. These are things that I have thought about a little bit. I've actually used the game Mafia, right? I've talked about that game before. I've actually used Mafia to try to help me out a little bit. And we do have to get around a couple things, right? How Among Us operates, if the role would actually work in the game. I think I've done it. At the same time, again, like I said, I know it may not be perfect. As always, let me know what roles you think should be in this game. Let me know what you think about my personal list. All in the comments. If you guys want me to make more Among Us videos, definitely do that as well as obviously subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell icon. So let's go through this. Again, I have 4. I want to start with a nurse. Now, a nurse is kind of difficult. I want there to be some sort of doctor, nurse, some sort of because I've seen this even before, even in the comments of my own videos, a healer-like role. Now, the issue is I don't necessarily know how that would work all that well, considering once you're dead, you're dead. The thing with it is like, okay, when Mafia, you're asleep overnight, and the nurse can pretty much nullify when a killing happens, right? And nobody, actually, it's kind of ingenious, right? Because nobody really knows what happened. It doesn't give away the Mafia, it doesn't give away the nurse, and it doesn't give away pretty much anything else. You don't even technically even need to say that there was a murder done to a specific person. So Among Us would be a lot more difficult. Maybe the ability to bring somebody back from the dead, somebody that's already been taken out. At the same time, if you do that, they would be able to then say who the killer was. So I'll be honest, I mean, starting it off with this one, I don't have the greatest tools of how that could work, unless there's a way of doing it where maybe you have to attack a person twice, but in the same way. I don't know. Maybe you could then. The only way I can think of is if you maybe implement like a booby trap system, or maybe you can set traps and then that goes off and hits somebody. You need to make it where if a nurse or a healer or a doctor, again, whatever word you want to use, if they're able to bring people back or help people in some way, the person that they bring back can't tell what happened. You know what I mean? There can't be a big amount of information that comes back with them doing it. So it is tough. I think in order to do that, you then have to have murders happen, be like inadvertent, where you don't actually know who ended up doing it. So that is the first thought. The second thought, and these actually branch off into 2 different things, is a cop / a traitor, or somebody in the Mafia circle. So maybe like an undercover cop. Okay, so in this way, literally it is cop / undercover cop. And what I mean by this is, if you use a cop, maybe they could be on the crewmate side, where they can be there. Maybe they're able to deduce something, right? They're able to figure something out. Maybe they have the ability to actually take out a Mafia member, but you need enough of something or do it. There's another issue. I feel like if we want to make this very good, a cop would need to be able to take out the Mafia. Maybe they don't even need to be able to do any kind of detective work, because that is another role I do want to talk about. That's actually the 4th role, as a detective. So maybe the cop and detective would need to work together. Oh, and by the way, I know this is a little bit further in the video. I'm not saying all of these roles need to be in it. I'm not saying these are all, again, like the perfect roles, or there's no roles that could be better than it. In fact, if you put all 4 of these roles in the game, I don't even know if the game would work anymore. These are just some examples or some ideas of something that and we do know, by the way, they are thinking about doing roles, or they may do roles eventually. So maybe this, one of these will end up being it, but I just wanted to throw that out there. So in order to differentiate the cop from like a detective, cop, I feel like, would need to be able to take out the Mafia, whereas the detective can maybe only ever find clues. It would be interesting, though, for the cop, because, well, you're going to run around and then you have to hit like the kill button, say on like your screen. You'd have to hit that, but how would the game know? Is the game just going to allow you to kill anybody? And again, like in a Mafia situation, if a cop picks wrong, they just pick wrong. It's not like they eliminate the person, right, if they didn't pick the actual Mafia. So that one would also be an interesting one, but just somebody and that's kind of the whole point, by the way, of the cop / detective, is somebody in the crewmates circle that's got a little bit more power than them. Maybe the detective, and I have seen this, if you have a detective, this one I think is actually a little bit more thought out. If you're a detective, maybe if you find a dead body, you can report it, but if you stand there, maybe you can analyze, like do like a Batman kind of analysis to it, and maybe you can see like footprints, maybe you can see where the killer went or where the killer came from. That way, that does lead itself into conversation, because if you're the one to report it and you say, well, hey, and somebody says, well, I was over here, but you as the detective, well, the footprints actually led into over here, and that's where they stopped, so I know that's not true. And again, that would be a very important role, and that would be somebody the imposters would want to take out, so you probably wouldn't divulge that you are, the detective. I think that would actually be the better one. That would maybe even be a better one over a cop. Cop would just kind of be there maybe to kind of, again, provide some sort of, I would say, shield to the actual crewmates, but detective, I think, is a little bit further out. Here's one that I found very interesting, and I looked on, like, the Wikipedia for Mafia. They have a traitor and a thing called a roll cop, and I try to, put both of them into one for Among Us. Here's what I'm thinking. Maybe you have like a third imposter. Now, I know you can technically play the game with 3 imposters, but we see most of the people, Mr. Fruit, Cartoons, Delirious, all them, they normally play 10 people, 2 imposters, right? So say you have your 2 imposters. Well, add a third one, but maybe they are a traitor / again, what I was saying earlier with like an undercover cop, where they know they are part of the imposters, and the imposters know that they're, them as well, but you probably don't want to give you give yourself up. Now, this could lead to, again, 2 different branches. In Mafia, a traitor can't actually perform kills. That's what I read online. So you could say, okay, well, if there's a traitor in it, then you would argue that the traitor would actually be part of the good guys, but maybe they're just, it's like a forbidden rule, like they're not allowed to say it. But the traitor is not allowed to actually kill off people, and the imposters could kill them. That's where you'd have to have the twist, is if you have this where there's like 3 imposters and the third imposter technically isn't an imposter, they would need to actually be taken out. Now, the issue again is if you're moving around and there's, say, 2 of you like in a room and you have the kill icon or the kill button, well, then you're going to know that that person is in fact a traitor or whatever. So there are literally game problems here where it's like the game can't know who's who, you know what I mean? Because if the game knows who's who, then you'll be able to figure it out pretty much immediately. There are issues you'd have to get around. I just think, again, same reasoning as giving the the crewmates an additional thing, another person that can kind of help them out. Again, whether it's a detective, maybe trying to give them a little bit more information, but again, you obviously want to keep that quiet, or a cop, and the cops may be able to do something, maybe even something where the cop can, because how your names are either, if you're an imposter, your name is red. Well, maybe if you're a cop and you pick a person so many times that you maybe think is an imposter, this is maybe how you could do it. Maybe when you're running around, their color changes, where say, okay, I picked this person, I think he's the imposter. Well, maybe his name is like a shade of red, but that doesn't guarantee that he is an imposter. You have to pick him a couple times, and then for sure he becomes red, and then you're like, okay, I for sure know that that's an imposter. It took a little bit of talking, but I actually feel like that's a way you could work around it, where it doesn't involve any extra button presses. It just involves what you see on the screen, which is definitely possible. Whereas, again, for this one, though, the final role of being like a spy, or, that's another word for it, right? A spy, some kind of, undercover, operative or whatever, something like that would make the imposters even start to maybe question themselves. Because if there's 3 imposters and you're like, well, Dan, you haven't killed anybody. Only we've killed people. Why haven't you killed somebody? Then it's like, oh, maybe maybe that's a situation where if you get down to you 3 and then 2 crewmates, you'll actually lose because the traitor will count. In fact, that would be the best thing right there, where it's like you need to vote. Maybe you can't kill the traitor. Maybe you have to figure out who the traitor is and vote them out. And the imposters, that actually adds an extra layer of difficulty to them, where it's like, well, they can't say that they know for certain that, well, I'm an imposter, he's an imposter, but that third person, he's one of us, but he's really not. We need to vote him out. That actually adds a dynamic where it's like, well, you can't just say that, but you can frame the conversation as well, maybe he is maybe he's a traitor, maybe he's an undercover thing, right? Because he hasn't done anything, maybe he's literally done nothing. Maybe he also has no tasks, right, where he has to fake them as well. The more I talk about this, the more I think that these things are legitimate things that can absolutely happen in the game. I'm gonna stop there. There's 4 for you. It's more detailed. Some of them are more detailed than others, but let me know in the comments below, guys. What do you think? What do you think about my list? Do you have more? If this video does well, or if you guys give me more suggestions, or however it ends up playing out, I can definitely do something like this again. We can absolutely continue this. I do have more Among Us videos planned to do. I don't want to abandon this game, especially as more things eventually get added to the game, right? There'll be more reason to cover it as well, okay? So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you're subscribed, have the bell icon turned on, and I will see you all on the next video.